This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 78 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today I'm talking to Tara Cremin all about how to sell more ebooks and audiobooks on Kobo. But first to last week's question, which was, do you plot pants or plants? Scott Kavanagh said, whether I plot pants or plants depends on what writing course I have tried that week, which did make me giggle. Maybe you don't need to have a set defined way and you can just go with however the story feels. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Carrie said, I'd say I plants. I skinny draft as an outline and a lot of things change because it's so bare bones. Amy said, I plot pretty detailed outline/scene maps. I tend to take the overall action of the scene or section and break it down into individual elements I want to include and check them off as I go. But it's in pencil, so it can always change. Tom Fowler said, plants. I think most people are somewhere in the middle of that pants/plot spectrum. There are a few all the way at each end, but not many. My novel outlines are 3 to 4 pages, and each scene gets 1 to 3 sentences. That's the plotting. Turning 1 to 3 sentences into something between 300 to 2,000 words is the pantsing. Ian said he plantses, and Kevin J. Fellow said, iterative plantser. I plot a rough summary, write, revise, plot, rinse, repeat. And I love this because I think I'm inclined to agree with Tom that most people are somewhere in between. And I also think that the more books we write, the more our processes refine, and for some people that means they end up swinging one way or the other. For others that means that they decide not to have a process and it changes depending on the story. I think for me, I am probably slightly more of a plotter than not. I have tried both ways, and the way that gets me to finish books more effectively is to plot. Now, when I say plot, I don't have thousands and thousands of words, but I do have scene outlines. I know about the theme. I have information about the characters. And yeah, I am not going to say too much about my process because I am in the process of changing and iterating my process. But I think once I've done a couple of books like this, I may have to talk about it because I think it's an amazing new way of doing things. And yeah, so I'm super excited. This week's question is, what are your quarter 2 goals? And I will talk about mine in a second when we do the personal update. The book recommendation for the week this week is How to Make a Living with Your Writing by Joanna Penn. It is a fantastic book, chocked full of information, like mindset information, strategy, all about how to make a living with your writing, and I was quoted. So, I'm all blushing and very honoured to have been quoted in her book. So, yeah. Okay, personal update this week. If you missed the Q&A, the live Q&A with Mark Lefebvre on Wide Marketing, then you can either go into the Facebook group to get it, which is the Rebel Authors Facebook group, or you can go onto my YouTube and I've posted up a live replay, which I've just sort of snipped and edited, so it's got the main questions. So I'll include a link to that in the show notes. So as we approach the end of quarter 1, I have been reflecting on quarter 1's progress, which was not great. I will be honest. Of my 6 goals that I had, I've done 1, and that one was not a business one. So my goal was to read 26 books, and I've read 28, which is amazing. But that's not getting me any books finished. To be fair, I wasn't anticipating side characters to run as long as it has. I'm now at 67, I think, and a half thousand words, which is about 27,500 words over what I thought it would be. So understandably, the book is almost double and probably will be double the length that it was. So essentially I have written another book. But that still does not make me happy because I wanted to finish the fucking thing. So Quarter 2 is very much going to be full of finishing energy for me. I have to finish side characters and the workbook. I've got Trey and Sirens, which need editing. I've got 2 box sets that need sorting out. And an audiobook that I'm almost halfway through recording. So yeah, it's all going to be about finishing, so that come quarter 3, I am launching and I am also starting new things. So yes, it's going to be a tough quarter, this next one for me, but I must get this stuff finished. So yes. As always, another mention about the Rebel Author Diaries Anthology. Submissions are now open and will be open until the 30th of June. If you have any questions, please do feel free to email me, and you can find out more about the anthology at sashablack.co.uk/rebel submissions. The Rebel of the Week this week is Lynne Wham, and what an awesome surname you have. Lynne says, when I was younger, I was struggling like many of us do to figure out who I was. I found others were fast to decide for me and shove me into a box that suited and made sense to them. One day at school, I mentioned to a friend wanting to buy a new pair of Vans, the chunky trainer shoe rather than the slip-on ones. My friend laughed at me. I was confused and self-conscious. She kept laughing and told me it was ridiculous. They weren't me and I wasn't going to buy a pair. I walked away confused, strangely upset and unsettled. I bought the shoes. They were comfy and the laces didn't need tying. A big win. A few years later, I was thinking of getting my nose pierced. A couple of friends were getting their belly buttons done, so I asked to go along. The same friend laughed and said I would never do it, it just wasn't me. I was indignant, upset, and argued back, but she remained convinced that I'd never do it. I didn't get my piercing to spite her. I got it because I wanted it, but also to remind me of something. I am who I am, not how it suits other people to think of me. If I do something that rocks you, well, you shouldn't have confined me to your labelled box to begin with. I no longer have that friend, though I wish her well. I still have the shoes and I have my nose stud, lipsticks in every colour, and I even got the pixie cut I always wanted in my 20s. But most importantly, I have the knowledge that I am strong, that I know who I am, and that I won't fold myself up to fit inside another person's box. I adore this story. I think that this kind of gaslighting behaviour, this kind of bitchy put downs, people don't realise how detrimental what they're saying can be. It is so easy to judge and so easy to pass comment, and we all do it. I know I have done it in the past, but we do need to check ourselves every once in a while. Just because something doesn't, agree with our morals or standards doesn't mean that it isn't something that would make somebody else happy. And frankly, if it makes somebody else happy, then, what right do we have to question that? Unless you're stabbing someone in the face, in which case, I'm going to judge you. So yeah, I absolutely adore this story, and I love that it's led to empowerment as well. If you would like to be a Rebel of the Week, then please do send in your story. It can be any kind of rebellion, big, small, or somewhere in between. You can email your Rebel story to rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com or tweet me at rebelauthorpod. One new patron this week, welcome, and a huge thank you to Noelle Davidson. And I also want to say thank you to Heather, who recently upped her pledge and has now joined us in the Rebel Slack group. And of course, a gigantic thank you to all my existing patrons. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes as well as bonus content, then you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/SashaBlack. This episode is sponsored by Kobo Writing Life, so I'm going to play a quick word from the sponsor, and then we're going to talk to Kobo themselves.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Joni.
And we're from the Kobo Writing Life podcast. Kobo Writing Life is Kobo's free, fast, and easy self-publishing platform. KWL was built by authors for authors, and our team of dedicated book lovers is always working hard to help authors reach new readers around the world.
If you're looking for some tips on growing your indie publishing business this year, the Kobo Writing Live podcast is a great resource. We've talked to authors big and small, and they always have something to teach us. One of my favorite episodes from recent months was our conversation with Karen Slaughter, who's a best-selling crime author with years of experience. She discussed with us her career, delved into what makes a great crime novel, and she talked about the double standards imposed on female crime writers. Karen also told us about her nonprofit, Save the Libraries, and provided some great advice for aspiring authors.
In episode 200, we interviewed Kobo's CRM marketing manager, Christina Mendez, about marketing your books on a global scale. She provided tips for global messaging, the importance of being universal but not generic. She discusses the different tactic Kobo uses to market ebooks and audiobooks, and explains how the Kobo recommendations algorithm works. My favorite part of the interview is when Christina shares her insights about what makes the Kobo customer unique. Spoiler alert, the Kobo customer is a voracious reader, and they're constantly reading. They love to read long series, and the most popular genres are romance and thrillers.
If you want to learn more about Kobo Writing Live or our podcast, check out our blog and find us on social media. You can find our podcast on all podcast providers. If you're ready to start your self-publishing journey, you can create your free account at kobo.com/writinglife. Bye, Rebels.
Hello and welcome back to the Rebel Author podcast. Today I am joined by Tara Cremin. Tara is the director of Kobo Writing Life for English language. Tara is responsible for the overall author experience on Kobo Writing Life, from optimizing current features to looking for new avenues of growth. As a subject matter expert in all aspects of indie publishing, her aim is to make KWL the greatest and most user-friendly self-publishing platform available. Tara has worked for KWL since the inception and was previously responsible for content operations. Combining technical expertise with an in-depth knowledge of the self-publishing community, she loves talking to authors and using direct feedback to make improvements that benefit the whole user base. You can sometimes hear her as a guest host on the Kobo Writing Life podcast, and can reach her with all of the links that I will put in to the show notes for all of the listeners. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Delighted to be here.
No, it's an honor because I've gotten to speak to a couple of people in Kobo before, and so it's always lovely to get to speak to somebody new. And obviously we've had plenty of contacts sort of in the background and all that digital stuff. So tell me and tell everyone listening a little bit about you before we get started. Like, how did you come to work for Kobo? And the important question, because whenever I've spoken to other Kobo staff, I've always asked the same question. Are you also a writer or just a reader? Or tell me about you.
Okay, I will do. My mom thinks I'm a writer. That's what she tells people I do, which is quite funny because I don't think she really understands my job at all. So I have to keep correcting her. But yeah, I can get to that. But so I'm originally from Ireland, and I've been in Canada for almost 9 years now. And like we were just discussing prior, I spent some years in England as a child as well. So I kind of grew up a little bit all over the place. But I've always really loved books, and my background is in American literature and film, so I kind of always leaned toward American and North American storytelling. I kind of think I was a bit of a romantic in my literary interests, and as many people in their early 20s do in university, I was really drawn to the beat writers. I really dug the stream of consciousness prose, and combining poetic writing with sometimes nonsensical content was something that I was kind of into. So that was sort of my academic background. And just always been very interested in books and technology. My dad is always a mad gadget guy. He is the person that has the gadgets first that, often don't make it to market much longer than that. Like we used to have this game that was not a CD-ROM game, but it was like a CD game that was this Japanese one that never made it to market, but we played it as kids because he was just obsessed. So growing up, always liked technology and liked how books merged with technology. So I moved to Canada to kind of as a want to live that big city life, because Ireland is wonderful, but it's kind of one big small town, which is delightful, but I wanted to, have my sort of big city experience. So Toronto is where I ended up, and that kind of really suited me. And I started at Kobo kind of just as a front line for their new self-publishing service that had just launched. I think it was launched maybe 2 weeks before I actually joined. I was brought on as a temp to help with a device launch. And they were like, hey, you like books and your background is in literature. Like, do you want to help authors? I was like, cool, yeah, like that's awesome. So started like answering emails. And then that really made me interested in the technology behind digital books. So the more and more I learned about like conversions and things like that, like I wanted to be the person that was on the other end, like cracking open the EPUBs and like fixing the issues. So I did that. I moved onto the content team and sort of like gathered a lot of information there, and have kind of joining the Kobo content team was amazing in one sense because it surrounded me with like-minded people. And as somebody that moved to a new city, and they slowly became all of my friends that I had in Canada, which was really wonderful. And as I'm not coming from a traditional publishing background, which many people that work for Kobo do have, I kind of felt like I kind of cheated my way into things slightly, that I was able to learn the publishing industry from working in the publishing industry, which is kind of a really non-traditional way to go about it. So I'm very grateful that I was able to kind of get that from Kobo, and kind of just wanted to take that learning and see how I could apply it to the indie community, having spent so much time like dealing with authors directly as well. So sort of like a 360 look at everything, I think, which makes it a good fit for like where the team is going now and what we're doing with Kobo Writing Life. And then to answer your question about being a writer, so like I said, my mom thinks I'm a writer. She's always telling me about how her story would be great if somebody would write it down, and I'm like, okay, one day. Like, but no, I'm not traditionally myself. I think maybe I'll have a story someday. I'm kind of working with authors is actually makes it a little harder because I'm in awe of how much writing and how good the writing is that people do. So it's not discouraging, but I think it kind of makes me want to make sure that if I ever do write something, that it's something that I genuinely like believe in and have the time for. Like I journal a lot and stuff like that. And I've tried Nano a couple of times. I've done it like 3 times now, and I've never quite hit the 50,000. But the most I got in one NaNoWriMo was 25,000. So it's really like an interesting thing to do, and I like Nano because it really puts me in the seat of authors, and kind of gives me the awareness of how terrifying a blank page is. But no, so not a writer myself, but just a big book fan and like somebody that has admiration for people that live their lives doing something so creative.
So, because I have seen, I'm sure I'm not making this up, but Kobo, like a lot of the Kobo staff do Nano, don't they? I'm sure I've seen photos of you guys all around desks with like paper everywhere and stuff. Or
yeah, we do. We call it Kobo Rimo. We do it every year, and I think we had 20 people this year, and the prizes were Kobo devices if they hit the 50,000 words, and 3 people did it.
No way, that's amazing. That's so,
Yeah,
I love that. I'm guessing that Kobo is encouraging you guys to do it. I think that's so cool.
Oh, absolutely. Like when we were in the office, so like we're all working remotely right now, but I think it was the year before last when we did Kobo Rimo, we booked a meeting room at lunchtime every day. So it was a place where people could go and sit and write and just be silent, but around, it's nice encouragement around other people. But there was one day that we were there, and I must have missed the invite to lunch, but I was like the only person on a Friday, and I was like, this is great. Like I just eat my lunch and be on my own, and it's fine. And in walks Michael Tamlin, who is the CEO of Kobo, and he's doing NaNoWriMo, and he just sits across from me and just like, oh, we're going to write today? And I was like, yeah. And he's just writing his book and I'm writing my book. And you're just like, this is just so cool. Like, where would you ever just get to have this interaction, even though it's like a very silent like thing that we did, but it was just really nice.
I think that's amazing because, like I've pretty much only ever worked in very corporate stuffy places where they would never do anything so exciting as that. Yeah, it just makes me love Kobo like even more that you do such cool things like that. And you also throw really amazing parties. But that's a whole nother story. Okay, so
I miss those.
yeah, I know. I just miss people.
I know.
One thing I wanted to ask before we dive into all of the new and exciting things that Kobo are doing, you mentioned like the very interesting, like lyrical prose and then nonsensical stuff from your degree. Do you have any like recommendations? I always like to throw recommendations out for listeners just because I thought that sounded quite interesting. So
Yes. I'm gonna
testing you
walk as
now.
I'm doing.
Testing you.
I don't know. I'm looking for the book. Let me just pull up. Sorry. No, this is terrible audio.
Don't worry.
Oh, well, I mean, like Kerouac is always very good. I find myself, I used to read On the Road every year. I would reread it. And it was very interesting to me to have like a view into it. Like, when you're 25, you don't read it the same way as you were 20, etc. And things like that. But as I've gotten older, I guess that sort of romanticism is less interesting, but I've just grabbed my Kobo. So yes, recommendations that I would definitely have. So there is one, she is a Toronto author called Kyo McClear, and that's Kyo, and her book is called Birds Art Life. And I don't think this is like, it's not nonsensical at all, but it's kind of it's this nonfiction, but it's kind of mixes prose in with it, where it's kind of like part memoir, part meditation. It's about how she discovers bird watching after going through the grieving process, and how it kind of helped her get out of a creative funk that she just goes bird watching around Toronto. And she just writes really, really lyrically beautiful passages about it. So that would definitely be one that I recommend. This is a book that I've given it away at least 4 times. And I'm just like, it's a very nice gift. And then the other book that I would recommend is an Irish writer, and I'm going to really shame myself now because I'm not going to be able to pronounce her name properly, even though it's Irish. Dorian Nigriafa, and it's called A Ghost in the Throat. And I believe it is her debut, but it's this kind of, it's a prose debut. It's kind of an essay mixed with autofiction, and it's about like in the 1700s, an Irish noblewoman like writes this poem after discovering her husband's been murdered, but then it cuts to present day where a woman encounters the poem, and then it kind of interacts with like the past and the future, and it's very kind of non-linear timeline of things. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. I was able to get my hands on a signed copy. There's this great little indie bookshop called Kenny's.ie in Ireland, and they do worldwide shipping. And for some of these, because releases are, sorry, now I'm just blabbering on about books, but the release schedules, you know yourself how traditional publishers often don't release things for months and months in North America. So this book, I don't believe is out yet in Canada. So I've had to rely on Kenny's bookshop from Galway, and they do free global delivery, and they're really fast. And like, yeah, they're just this little bookshop that's existed for like 90 years. So I would recommend that. So those would be amazing. My 2 records. I'll send you the links to them.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I am obsessed with prose, so I'm very interested to go and have a look at it, particularly because it's lyrical. I love like dissecting prose and seeing what I can learn. So, okay. Kobo have recently launched like an audiobook arm/platform for indie authors where they can upload their audiobooks direct to your platform. So could you talk a little bit about that platform and maybe like the key things that indie authors need to know about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the audiobook platform is part of Kobo Writing Live. So it's within your account itself. So we really wanted to make it an easy upload process, just basically allowing authors with finished audiobooks to publish them onto our store and our partner stores as easily as they can do with an ebook. So the process is actually, I think, somewhat easier than ebooks. It's all in one page. You can drop it down. And we do everything in-house. So we handle all of the files and all of the processing. So we find that we say that books are published between like 24 to 72 hours. But more often than not, they're actually processed within 24 hours, which for audiobooks is very, very quick turnaround because given the size of the files, when you're coming through an aggregator, they can be a lot slower to upload them. So that's just something that's we're kind of very proud of, that we were able to do it all in-house and able to design the whole thing. We offer pre-orders with no end date. So you can set pre-orders for your file. It's super easy to like just drag and drop the files themselves with the audio. And when we were testing it out before we launched, like one of my favorite features, which is just kind of goes back to the cracking open the manuscripts. I like some of the technical aspects, is that but like one recommendation is always to like list your files per chapter. So when you drop them in, all you have to do is reorder the files, and that actually creates your table of content for your audiobook. So that's very important with an audiobook, that you have good navigation for the author, for the customers to be able to listen to them. And one thing Kobo learned when we actually moved into audiobooks is that we're working on it right now with the W3C, but there's actually no overall rule for the format of table of content or audiobooks. Like there's nothing that's formalized in the same sense that there is from digital books. It's kind of, a lot of it has carried over from CDs. You'll see like CDs being digitized, and they'll still have breaks to, you know, enter next CD, turn this over, etc. So it was nice to be able to ensure that we can create these files that have like a really listenable table of content, and that it's kind of good for the overall customer experience. And then one of the other good features about it is that we allow you to control your pricing in the 16 currencies. So these are the same currencies that you can set your ebook pricing in. So you'll be able to set them. You can set an audiobook for free if you would like to, but you can set them in all of those areas. And just basically wanting to give indie authors as much control over their audiobooks as possible.
So a couple of additional questions. I actually slotted in a pricing question later, which I forgot to send you. So is the audio tab like the promotions tab, in that authors need to email to ask for access to that, or is it being rolled out automatically into accounts? Because I know when I checked like a couple of days ago, because I'm literally recording, I'm narrating my own nonfiction. So, and I'm aiming, actually, I don't know if I want to say it out loud, not too much longer, suffice to say, and I will be wanting to upload direct to you guys. And so, yeah, I did go and check the other day, and I know that I don't have access. So I was wondering, like, is that something we apply for? Is it something that's being rolled out? How is that working?
Yeah, all you have to do is ask me onto your podcast, and I can give you access. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's considered in beta at the moment. I'll definitely add it to your account. So it is very similar to the promotions tab, where we're just kind of adding it on request. Just as we're building it, it's not quite finished. We want to make sure that it's kind of as good as it can be before we roll it out, but we will be rolling it out shortly. So I don't want to also give a timeline, but it will be this year that it'll just automatically be available to all authors. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. No, I just wanted to clarify, because indies turn things around so quickly that, you know, I just wanted to make sure that if everybody knew how to get access to it if they wanted it.
Just send the team an email at writinglife@kobo.com and ask for audio, and we'll add it for you.
Perfect. So, like, I mean, you've sort of talked about the platform. I mean, what are the basic steps to publishing with Kobo, like audio with Kobo? What kind of information do people need? Do you guys have any specifications that perhaps other platforms don't have, or anything that they might need to like take into account when doing audio?
Yeah, so one thing that I would definitely recommend is really paying attention to your metadata when it comes to audio. You'll notice if you browse the Kobo website that we will automatically link your ebooks and audiobooks. So to give that customer kind of like, here's the option, like it's in audio or it's in just a digital ebook. But we can't do that unless the metadata is exactly the same for your ebook and your audiobook. So making sure that the title doesn't have an accidental space, or you know, sometimes people have a series that has the, and then they forget the in another one. So I would just definitely go through things with a fine tooth comb to make sure that your metadata is all correct. That would be sort of a big takeaway for me. And then I would also say, so you don't have to have a different cover image for your audiobooks. Some people like to produce like an audio specific cover, but I think you can just kind of make a version of your own book. But so if you have just, so our audiobook covers are square, so they kind of really suit a phone, because that's where we have our audiobooks, is on our Apple and Android apps that are downloaded. You can download them for free. It's also a really handy app because it has the ebooks and audiobooks are all in one place. So and Kobo Plus in the areas where that is. So it's quite good and easy for the reader. But so that's why they're square. So as you can imagine, with the regular sort of book covers, they're more rectangle. So if you don't have a square image, you can actually upload it and we will do what we call letterboxing and make it smaller for you. But I would recommend maybe just like taking the time to try and just to make sure that your image does look good square, because you don't really want to stretch it out, because I do think the cover is like your main feature of like selling your book. So that would be something not to overlook, because yeah, I feel like some audio authors are kind of like, I already have a cover, so why would I think twice about it? And yeah, you don't necessarily need to like pay to create a brand new one, but I would just like have a look and maybe test it out to see what it actually looks like. And then in terms of specs, I'm not too sure what the specs are for like we accept like MP3 and MP4 files, I believe. And it's very similar about the board to anything else that you would find in any other audio retailer.
Perfect. And okay, I'm going to throw another question at you. I'm so sorry. And so if you don't have the answer to this, that's absolutely fine. But what is popular in terms of audio, like in terms of genre? Do you know, perchance, what is popular on Kobo this year?
Yeah, it's kind of, I can definitely talk about what's been popular this year, but I think it's hard to gauge overall trends, because this year was so heavy on political releases. So nonfiction did very well. There was a lot of memoirs, there was a lot of things like that coming out. So that's not to say that next year we'll see the same kind of giant surge in terms of nonfiction. I think nonfiction definitely lends itself to audio because like you mentioned, that the authors can do their own narration, being like the subject matter experts. But what's really interesting, I think, in terms of independent publishing is that when I look at the different sales trends that we have at Kobo, well, so one thing to kind of gauge is Kobo being a global retailer, the trends definitely vary from country to country. So I'm kind of generalizing. That's not to say in France they don't read something completely different to what they're reading in Australia, for instance. But in general, nonfiction in terms of like quote unquote like traditionally published books does really well. And then their romance audiobooks are really like a small slice of things. But when you look at the independent books being published, it's completely flipped around. The romance are the majority of books that we're selling on audio, and especially sci-fi and fantasy are doing really well. And I think it's kind of twofold, is that that's what a lot of our independent authors are writing. But on the other hand, it's what is missing. Like there's a gap in the market where they're not, you know, your traditional publishers aren't necessarily rushing to get their backlist romance titles transferred to audiobooks. So I think there's definitely movement in the market for that.
And in terms of pricing, are there any sort of price points that you see that are working better? I mean, pricing generally, is it for Kobo, is it based on like the number of hours? Are you seeing any trends? Like talk to me and talk to listeners about pricing and how they should like choose their price point, because you've mentioned that, you know, we have more flexibility on Kobo. So how do they price?
Sure. And I guess it's important to maybe highlight the royalties that we have for Kobo Writing Life when you're direct publishing with us. So anything that's priced above $2.99 is going to receive 45% royalties, and anything that's priced below that is going to receive 35% royalties. And then if a book has been redeemed with a token, so if when a customer signs up for a monthly subscription, they get one free book a month. So if they use this token on your book, that's 32%. So just to keep those in mind as like the main kind of royalty ranges. And in terms of pricing, I chat to our audiobook merchandiser about this, and her kind of main takeaway is to at least price the point of the subscription for the month, because the customer wants to know that they're getting the value if they are going to use that token. That's not to say that you can't kind of dive in under the, so I think it's $12.99 in Canada for the subscription. I believe it's $9.99 in the States. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. Just like have a look on our store and see what's there, because you want to be able to tell the customer that their token is worth your book. It's worth the price that they're paying per month for that book. So I think that's something definitely to keep in mind. And then also that traditionally published books are still like coming in priced incredibly high. I mean, like, I know Obama is Obama and he's like going to sell his audiobook regardless, but his audiobooks, it was $60 like for an audiobook. Like that's so much money.
Shut the front door. I
Yeah.
am gobsmacked. $60? Are you? That's madness. Who the bloody hell's going to pay $60 for an audiobook? Really? Oh my goodness me. I'm like,
I know
it's Obama, but I mean, like, really? That is, I am shook. At that.
So that's sort of what you're seeing with these really like front list bombshell books are being priced very, very high. So I think there's a great opportunity for indies to come in right in the middle mark and to not undervalue their books, because again, like if you're pricing sort of in the same realm as like an ebook, if you're going to price it to the $3.99, $4.99, a customer might just be like, why would I, like, this is probably not great because I've been trained to think of audiobooks as really expensive. So I would say like definitely around the monthly subscription price point, if not a bit higher. And one thing to note as well with Kobo is that on our main store, on the product page on kobo.com of any book, it actually tells you, we estimate the amount of minutes and length of time it would take to read. So I would say browse the stores that we have on Kobo and kind of see what the pricing is, like see what a 6-hour audiobook price is versus, your book that you're uploading.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it would be as simple as your book is this many hours long and it's priced this way, but unfortunately, like it's a little bit more nuanced. So I would definitely have a browse around in the different currencies too.
Okay, so turning to then selling the audiobooks, one cheeky question and then a broader question. So is Kobo going to have a promotions like tab thing in the same way that you do for like your ebooks now, but specifically for audiobooks? So that's the part A. And then the part B is, how can we sell more audiobooks on Kobo?
So yes is the first answer. That is on our wish list. I don't know when it'll be, but yes, we're hoping to integrate it into the promo tab so it can just be like really easily accessible to authors. That promo tab is so popular. So yeah, we definitely want to make it available there. But in the meantime, what we are doing is we just have a mailing list for promotions. So if you're interested in being added to this and receiving emails of when we are doing different promos, just shoot the team an email at writinglife@kobo.com and just say audio mailing list and we'll make sure to add you. We're just a very small team, so there's just a few of us in working on them. And yeah, we have a number of promotions in the work. So last year was kind of our experimentation year in, what's working with audio. It really is different to how you promote an ebook per se. So one thing that we actually did do is that we had a buy more, save more. So that's sort of, it's what we call those promotions that are, if you buy three, I was going to say buy 3 books and get 2, buy 2 books and get 3. Oh God, I'm saying it wrong now. Get 3 books for the price of 2. And, or buy 1, get 1 free, stuff like that. We did one of those with a big multi-author audio promotion. And our creative team actually made us social sharing creative images. So we were able to give them to the authors and they could like put their book title, their book covers in this and then share them online and really like drive the promotion to their readers. So that was the first time that we've done that with like integrating creative. And that worked really, really well. So we're definitely going to try and do that again in the future. And one thing that is kind of interesting is that audiobooks kind of, they sell with mood in mind more so than ebooks. So people like to do things while they listen to audiobooks, they like to cook, walk, get your walk around the block here or something. So in terms of marketing, we have a number of lists on Kobo of these are the best audiobooks to fall asleep to, or to exercise to, or to do X, Y, or Z to. So if you browse these lists and think to yourself, like, man, my audiobook would be really good at that, like, let us know, because we update those all the time. And then we also have the different genre ones as well, kind of like for fans of X, Y, Z. So yeah, we're happy to add people to those lists. But yeah, it's just kind of showing the difference in how we're marketing audiobooks than ebooks.
I find that deeply fascinating because I mean, obviously, like, I have not published my audiobook yet, but I am not far away from doing that. And I hadn't even considered the fact that mood marketing might be the way to go with it. And I think that's so interesting because, of course, that's exactly what I do. I cook the majority of the time when I'm listening to an audiobook, or if I'm not cooking, I'm walking to pick my son up, or walking away from having dropped him at school. So like that, I mean, genius. I love that. I love learning something new. I think that's
like
fantastic.
My apartment is never as clean as when I have an excellent audiobook on, I'm like trying to find things that I can just like work on.
That's hilarious. I love that. Yeah, I'm like when you're hoovering, you sort of hoover faster in the most exciting bit of the story.
Exactly. Probably makes it like better. You're like really scrubbing.
Yeah. Best audiobooks to hoover to, best audiobooks to clean your bath to. Brilliant. I love it. Have you seen authors like making any like schoolboy errors or mistakes with either marketing or, I guess creating or distributing their audiobooks through Kobo?
Not like mistakes per se, I guess, like learnings that we've kind of seen. Definitely like making sure that you're linking to Kobo. That sort of seems like an obvious one, but sometimes can be overlooked, especially if you're an independent author that's publishing on several different retailers. So just making sure that people know that your books are there and letting them know that your audiobooks are on Kobo. One key feature as well is just letting them know that the Kobo app is free to download. People might not be sure how they can like listen to the audiobook and like, is it complicated? And no, it's like super simple. So that would be definitely something that I would advise. Like I mentioned with the metadata, making sure that that's absolutely not priced, that the metadata is really clean and linking your books together really well. And speaking of pricing, I guess something that we definitely recommend authors do is to set the price in all of the currencies that are available. We give you 16 currencies for a reason. Kobo has a presence all over the world. And I think it was Joanna Penn just shared that she's sold books in 160 countries through Kobo. So it's really important to make sure that you're setting the price in those areas. So like trying to hit up at least your main ones. So at least your Canadian, your US, your Great British pounds, your Euro, Australia, New Zealand, etc. And then if you're publishing in different languages, to keep in mind, so say if you publish in French say if you publish in French, that you're setting your Euro price, but then you're also setting your Canadian dollar price to hit your Quebecois readers, and that you're also setting your Swiss franc price to like hit your different readers there. And the same goes with like Spanish readers, etc., that you're setting your kind of Mexican pricing as well. So I would definitely make sure that you're taking advantage of that. And then one thing kind of like tip wise that people might not realize, because we just added this recently, is that we now have an option where you can upload a sample. So previously to that, I think we either weren't displaying samples or we were just pulling the first 5 minutes. And the first 5 minutes of an audiobook is not very interesting. It's narrated by, this is chapter 1. And it's just like giving you like the basics of your table of content. So I would definitely, think about the sample that you want to upload, and obviously not something that's going to give away anything in your plot, but is it like a really exciting part of your story if it's a fiction book? If it's nonfiction, is it kind of maybe your introduction? Is it a good part of your introduction that gives a summary of like what this book is about? So that would be something to kind of just really think about your sample for your audiobook, because that's what customers can listen to and kind of decide if they want to purchase.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but I'm going to have to go away and think about it as I'm narrating. Sorry, I'm giggling because I remember putting a snippet on Instagram the other day because I made like a silly voice in one part of it, and I'm like, maybe I should not choose that section because it's anyway. I'll explain off air. But anyway.
Your sample, if it's nonfiction as well, and like, you know, your sample could just be like, hey, this is my book, I want to tell you about it. You know, it doesn't actually necessarily have to be part of the book. You know, you could be creative.
Interesting.
You could look at it as like a podcast, but it's your book.
Yeah, that is interesting. Ooh, might have to experiment there. Okay, so talking a little bit more generally about Kobo and getting sales on Kobo, what is working well in 2021 and like in terms of marketing tactics? And is there anything that you're seeing fading and not working so well in terms of selling books and audiobooks, but, you know, in general, selling on Kobo?
Sure. One thing that just I noticed recently, I've been doing a lot of analysis of like 2020 and looking kind of back to see how things went, especially as it's kind of been such a good year for reading and seeing the different trends. And one thing that really surprised me as still going strong in terms of marketing was the free first in series. It's kind of amazing to be able to see the read through that people get with that first free book. And a lot of publishers still are terrified of free. Indies are much more likely to innovate and take advantage of this, and they do. I think it really, really is something to consider. We have a free page that we curate on Kobo with just Kobo Writing Life titles, and that's updated on a weekly basis. It could be found in the promo tab. So if you have a free book, and it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to have a perma-free. I think that's also a misconception, is that some people think that it has to be kind of always free, but it can be just for a certain period of time. But if it's your first book and your series is long, it's a really, really valuable marketing tool. And I would say also to just constantly take advantage of the promotions tab that we have. We update it on a weekly-ish basis. So kind of, I would maybe just set a reminder for yourself to check in once a month, if not more often. And just to see what we have that's available, because there's just a bunch of different promos that we can offer and different readers that we're going to try and hit. Some of the promotions are price drop promos, which I know can kind of be less appealing because you have to worry about the price matching, and it can be quite difficult when you're navigating all of these different retailers. But we do try and balance those with promo code percentage drop. So the discount happening at the checkout, so that you don't actually have to worry about changing anything on your book yourself. So I would definitely say, have a look at that and take advantage of the promotions that are there. And then one thing I want to talk about a little bit is Kobo Plus, Kobo's subscription platform. So that's definitely something, and I'm sure like everyone listening is consuming media in some sort of subscriptive form, whether it's like Spotify or Netflix or your audiobook subscription. So Kobo Plus is our all-you-can-eat platform for ebooks, and it's available in Canada, the Netherlands, and Belgium just so far. And it really is interesting because it's a different audience. So it's kind of you're reaching people that want to binge books, that aren't the same reader that's going to like download your book and take it to their e-reader and sit down and you know, kind of plan to spend the time with it. We're hitting up the binge readers much better, like kind of giving them all they want. So I would take advantage of putting your books in there. It's not exclusive at all. You can remove your books whenever you like. You have the choice of choosing the region as well. So if you didn't want to put into Canada and just the Netherlands, we try and give the authors as much control as possible. But in terms of just Kobo, we're definitely focusing on rolling out this in different areas. So I would keep an eye on that on our social and things like that. So there's definitely marketing that you can do in terms of like Kobo Plus and things like that. And then one last tip that I have, actually have two more. One is a takeaway that we don't really understand why, but box sets do really, really well on Kobo. Our readers really like them. We don't have a higher price cap for ebooks. So if your box set is priced over $9.99, you're still going to get 70%. You can also create audiobook box sets. We have quite a large upload limit. So that's definitely something to consider, getting, like creating bundles. Maybe it's like a duo of box sets or something like that. We do several box set promotions in the promo tab. So those are really, really popular with our readers. And as always, we find that if an author has a BookBub featured deal, Kobo definitely does well from BookBubs being directed to us. So what I would say is to let us know when you do have these, and we'll try and see what we can do to highlight your book as well, because we wanted to kind of jump on the traction that you're already getting from that email going out. So yeah, those are just a couple of things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm still scribbling notes. Yeah, I'm excited because I am finally going to have more books in a series, so I'll be able to do many more different types of promotion. So I think I'm going to be having my third and fourth like a month apart. So I'm then going to do perma-free, which I've never done, and it does kind of sting like a little bit, like all that time I spent writing that book. But no, I mean, long-term mindset, and I know that hopefully, I know I will get read through because I know what the read through is so far. But yeah, I'm excited, and to capitalize on all of the promos. So I'm like desperately trying to finish the editing on this third and fourth book.
Yeah. And what made you decide to go perma-free instead of just like having it for like a month or something,
Because what I'm going to do is for a year, I'm going to like apply to different newsletter promotions, like one a week, just trying to keep steady traction on it, to see what I can get like with the read through. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll do it for 6 months and then I'll stop, or I'll do it for 3 months, and then if it dies, then I'll take the perma-free off. But I know that I don't want to do it for like just a week. I want to see if I can get it, like
try and get it to those people.
Yeah. Because there's only one more book after I've published the third and fourth one. There's only one more. So if I can keep it going until I can get this last book in the series, I don't know, hopefully I'll get like some read through. I don't know. We'll see. I say this and then maybe I'll change my mind.
That sounds great. No, I'm excited to see how it goes. I'll keep an eye on your books when I'm looking through stuff.
Oh, thank you. All right, my favorite question. This is the Rebel Author podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
So this is kind of the perfect question because I'm from Cork in Ireland, and Cork is known as the Rebel County. It's our nickname.
So that is amazing.
It's a long history of just sort of just constant kind of independence fighting through Cork, but it goes through to a lot of sports now. So if Cork are playing Gaelic sports like hurling or Gaelic football or anything, it's you're always shouting, "Come on, the Rebels!" Like that's what you're screaming when you're watching games. So yeah, that's what I would say. I always unleash my inner rebel because I am from the Rebel County.
Oh my goodness me, that is amazing. And you know what? I have visited Cork and I did not know this. Mind you, I was like 12 when I went. So like I forgive myself for not knowing this historical fact. But yeah, that is fantastic. Oh my goodness, I love it. I love that you are literally a born rebel in that case. Like it is in your genes.
We like to think so. And it's also like a joke in Ireland too, because Cork is the largest county, but it is not the capital. It's the second most populous city. So there's sort of we're kind of the butt of the joke that Cork loves talking about how great Cork is. So yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about Cork being the Rebel County, and everyone else in Ireland is just rolling their eyes.
Yeah. Oh no, I love it. Well, I'm not. I think this is fantastic. Okay, so where can everyone find out more about Kobo, about like the audio with Kobo, and I guess any other places that you would like to direct listeners to?
Sure. To log into our platform or to create an account, you can go to and kobo.com/writinglife. You can find us on all of the social platforms, except TikTok. We actually haven't embraced that one yet, but we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. If you'd like to send us an email, you can email us at writinglife@kobo.com. And then we also have our weekly podcast, the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where you can kind of get any tips and tricks. And we often post a lot of Kobo news there. So anytime that we have new products or anything like that, we like to go a little bit in depth with the people that created them.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Sasha. This was great. It was so much fun.
And of course, a big thank you to all of the show's listeners, and thank you to all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, then you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. And that's Sasha with a C and not an S. I'm Sasha Black. You are listening to Tara Cremin, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. Next week, I'm going to be joined by Amy Mertz, and we're going to be talking all about StoryBrand and how you can use StoryBrand to help you sell more books. Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.